What if the darkest moments in your life, those filled with fear, despair, and helplessness, weren't punishments, but invitations? Invitations to understand life in a way no comfort ever could. This was the journey of Fyodor Dostoevsky, not just a writer, but a man thrown to the very bottom of existence, only to return with a message we're still trying to grasp today, that true freedom begins when we lose everything. Born in Moscow in 1821, Dostoevsky entered a world already torn by chaos, political repression, poverty, and social inequality. His early life was shaped by the turbulence of Tsarist Russia, a nation where expressing your beliefs could cost you everything. Initially trained as a military engineer, Dostoevsky quickly abandoned that path. His soul didn't crave formulas or weapons, it yearned to understand the human soul in all its contradictions. But here's where things take a turn. In 1849, at the age of 28, he was arrested for participating in a circle that discussed banned political ideas. He wasn't a violent man. He merely believed people should be allowed to think freely. For this, he was sentenced to death. Imagine it, standing blindfolded before a firing squad, heart racing, breath shallow, waiting for the sound that ends your existence. And then, silence. Just moments before the execution, a last-minute pardon arrived. His sentence was commuted to hard labor in a Siberian prison. He was spared, but not saved. Because what followed was arguably worse than death. Years in the freezing wastelands of Siberia, stripped of all identity, beaten, humiliated, starved. He slept beside murderers and thieves. And yet, it was there, among the broken and forgotten, that he discovered the raw truth about life. He learned that suffering isn't just pain. It's a mirror, one that shows you who you really are when everything is taken away. Most of us spend our lives running from discomfort, but Dostoevsky was chained to it. And in those chains, he found something the free world never gave him: clarity. He began to write again, first in his mind, then secretly on scraps of paper. But these weren't ordinary stories. They were spiritual autopsies, brutally honest dissections of human contradiction, guilt, and the desperate thirst for redemption. He no longer saw freedom as the absence of bars. He saw it as the ability to face your own demons and not flinch. That's what changed him. That's what awakened him. He once said, "The degree of civilization in a society can be judged by entering its prisons." But what he never said out loud is that the degree of freedom in a person can be judged by what they do with their suffering. And for Dostoevsky, suffering was not an end. It was a beginning. When we read a novel, we expect a story. But Dostoevsky never simply gave us stories. He gave us ourselves, raw, conflicted, and trembling in the face of freedom. His characters were never just fictional. They were psychological X-rays. They exposed the cracks within us that we try so hard to hide. The contradictions, the guilt, the internal screams behind polite smiles. Take Crime and Punishment. On the surface, it's a tale of murder. But beneath that, it's an agonizing dissection of morality and the illusions we cling to when we think we're above the law. Raskolnikov, the protagonist, isn't just a poor student. He's the voice inside us that says, "I am special. I don't have to follow the rules like everyone else." How many of us have justified something, convinced ourselves we were the exception? Raskolnikov believed that greatness meant breaking moral boundaries, that he could transcend guilt because his goal was noble. But what he discovered, what Dostoevsky forced us to feel, is that guilt is not intellectual. It lives in the body. It haunts your dreams. It grows silently in the cracks of your soul until it suffocates everything. And when guilt finally breaks him, it's not through punishment by the law. It's through a girl named Sonia, a broken girl, selling herself to survive, yet full of grace. Sonia represents something the modern world often forgets, that healing doesn't come through power, but through humility and love. It is her compassion, not logic, that pulls Raskolnikov back from the edge. Dostoevsky once wrote, "The mystery of human existence lies not in just staying alive, but in finding something to live for." Every character he created was searching for that something. And they were always looking in the wrong places: status, ideology, intellect, until suffering stripped them bare. The Underground Man, from Notes from Underground, is another reflection of modern man. Bitter, alienated, addicted to thinking, but incapable of acting. He represents the part of us that resents the world but refuses to change it. He questions everything: freedom, reason, morality, until he collapses under the weight of his own doubt. Sound familiar? Dostoevsky knew that the real prison is not made of walls. It's the endless loop of our thoughts, our fears, and our refusal to face ourselves. His genius wasn't in writing answers, it was in asking questions we can't forget. His novels didn't just explore suffering. They invited us to suffer alongside the characters, not as punishment, but as transformation. In the Brothers Karamazov, each brother is a piece of the human soul. Dmitri, passion and impulse. Ivan, reason and rebellion. Alyosha, faith and love. Their father, a vile and corrupt man, becomes the symbol of everything rotten in the human spirit. When he's murdered, the question isn't just who did it. It's what part of ourselves wanted him dead. And in that question lies Dostoevsky's greatest gift. He didn't write villains and heroes. He wrote mirrors. What if I told you that freedom isn't always a blessing? In fact, Dostoevsky believed that true freedom is terrifying, not because we don't want it, but because we don't know what to do with it. We think we crave freedom, but when it's finally placed in our hands, many of us panic. Because with freedom comes responsibility, and with responsibility comes guilt, doubt, isolation. This is what Notes from Underground confronts head-on. The underground man is not a hero. He is a fragmented human, crippled by too much awareness. He overthinks everything. He's aware of every contradiction in himself, and that knowledge doesn't liberate him. It paralyzes him. He tells us, even if I were to do something good, I'd sabotage it out of spite. Why? Because freedom gives us power, but also reveals how broken we are. With no one left to blame, we must finally face our worst enemy ourselves. This is the paradox of human consciousness. The more we understand ourselves, the harder it becomes to act. And this is why many people unconsciously choose comfort over freedom. It's easier to be told what to do. It's easier to follow the crowd. As Dostoevsky shows in the famous Grand Inquisitor chapter of the Brothers Karamazov, most people don't want real freedom. They want security. In that scene, Christ returns to earth during the Spanish Inquisition. But instead of being welcomed, he is arrested by the church. Why? Because he gave humanity freedom, and the church believes that was a mistake. The Grand Inquisitor says, "You gave them freedom, but they don't want it. They want bread. They want rules. They want someone to carry their burden." This is one of the most haunting observations in all of literature. People will trade their souls for certainty, for someone to tell them they're good, that they belong, that their suffering has meaning. And yet, Dostoevsky doesn't condemn this. He understands it. Because he, too, was once that person on his knees in a Siberian prison, stripped of everything, desperate for meaning. He saw that real freedom doesn't look like flags waving in the wind. It looks like a silent decision in the middle of suffering. I will not escape. I will face it. Freedom, for Dostoevsky, is not the power to do anything you want. It is the courage to choose what's right, even when everything in you wants to run. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. What if your greatest pain wasn't a curse, but a doorway? For Dostoevsky, suffering was not something to be avoided. It was the only path to understanding life, and ultimately, to becoming fully human. His characters don't just suffer. They transform. Take Raskolnikov from Crime and Punishment, a young man who believes he can outthink morality, who commits murder under the illusion of being above human law. But what undoes him isn't the police. It's guilt. It gnaws at him, breaks him. And just when he's at his lowest, he meets Sonia, the embodiment of compassion. She doesn't scold him. She doesn't preach. She simply stays. With her silence, she tells him, "You are still worthy of love, even after what you've done." This is Dostoevsky's answer to darkness. Not revenge, not punishment, but redemption, earned not through perfection, but through humility and repentance. Because real change doesn't happen when you're praised. It happens when you're broken, and someone chooses to stay. This is why The Brothers Karamazov is not a book about theology. It's a book about spiritual survival. Dmitri, torn by passion. Ivan, tortured by doubt. Alyosha, burdened by faith. Each one suffers in their own way, but suffering in Dostoevsky's world is not an end. It is a fire, burning away pride, delusion, self-righteousness, until only the core of the soul remains. You see, Dostoevsky wasn't trying to make life prettier. He was trying to tell the truth. The truth is, pain humbles us. And in that humility, we can finally love. In his final years, Dostoevsky said something unforgettable. Beauty will save the world, but not beauty in the superficial sense. Not perfection, not glamour, not ease. The beauty he spoke of is the kind that rises from the ashes. The kind born through tears, silence, and the decision to forgive. He believed that inside every broken human being is the potential for light. And that suffering, when not wasted, can purify the soul. That is why Dostoevsky's work still moves us. Because in a world addicted to escaping pain, he reminds us, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest. And from that honesty, redemption begins. If this resonated with you, don't just scroll away. Like, comment, and subscribe. Because the journey to understanding life has only just begun.